Now we're going to explore the FB name FBML element, which is more complex, but you use it very, very frequently, and it makes sense to take a look at the various options and attributes of it so that you can see how much you can do with FB name. The reason you use FB name so frequently is that the only information from Facebook that you are allowed to store is a user ID number. You cannot store the name, you cannot store the friends graph, you cannot store anything that is Facebook information other than the name. You can store information that the user gives you directly, but you can't store the name. So all you will have is the ID number. When you have the ID number of a friend of your user, that's all you have from Facebook is the friend's ID number, and you will need FB name in order to get the information if you want to display it. So FB name is very, very often used. It's not terribly complicated, but there are quite a few options for it. And it's FB name that lets you greet people by name. So here on the first page, we say, "Hi, TJ. Welcome to Main Street Picks," and right away we say invite your friends so that they can join in. Now let's take a look at the FB name syntax for the FB name element. Here's a description that says what it does, and let's take a look at the various attributes that you can use. As is the case of anything that works with the user ID, you have to provide the user ID. But you can also use a couple of constants, the profile owner on the user's profile page or the logged in user if you are on a Canvas page. So if you can have whatever the user is passed in as the user ID. And if we come and we look here, this is the code that is greeting a person. It says here, "Hi," and we're calling FB name. We only want the first name, and the user ID is that string logged in user. So whoever is logged in, we will be greeting that user by first name only. And that's the first option that you can use. And it has exactly the meaning that you would expect, as does last name only. You can create a link to the user's profile on the name that is generated by Facebook, so someone can click on that and go right to the user profile. And you'll notice the default value is true. So if I come back down here, you will see that I've used the default value, and this in fact is a link to my profile. I did nothing to create that link. I used the default value, I used the first name option, and by default, I've got a link to the user's profile. And here I'm on the profile. If I use the browser's back button, I am back in my application. So FB name is not just providing us with information such as the name, but it can provide us with things such as the link. Then we have, comparable to the attributes in pronoun, we have things such as a possessive, the reflexive, and so forth. Show network is by default false. This will show the user's primary network. Now, networks in Facebook have changed over time. At first, they were terribly important. Now they are less important because networks started as being, when Facebook was for students, that was the school or university in which they were enrolled. We now have networks that are corporate networks, and people are moving around and they're taking their friends with them. So as people move around from network to network, this is less important. But if you are providing a Facebook app designed for a specific network, you will probably want to use this. And again, you can see you can use the literal you if that's the user. And this is used if you're particularly looking up things such as friends' IDs. If you are looking up an ID and you're not allowed to access that information, this will give you a string such as Facebook user. But you could say I mean, it would be rather rude, but you could say this is someone whose information you can't see. If you phrase that a little more politely, it will be more user-friendly. So those are the attributes you can use for FB name, and that will let you come in here and greet a user by name.